Good evening and welcome to the Silicon Valley Entrepreneur, a series of conversations with startup founders and the investors that fund them. I'm Chris Gill, President and CEO of SVASE, and tonight I'm delighted to have with me Andrew Steele, co-founder and Chief Operating Officer of TrueDomain, who was recently the winner of one of the next generation internet sessions at Launch Silicon Valley. So Andrew, thank you for coming along.
Thank you for having me.
Not at all, it's good to see you here. So tell us a little bit about what does TrueDomain do?
So we founded TrueDomain to stop email-borne phishing attacks. Everybody that I know, everybody that you know has received phishing attacks. I think here in the Silicon Valley, most of us think we're smart enough to sniff them out ourselves and, not click on things we shouldn't or not open attachments that we shouldn't. But the history and the data shows that the average consumer isn't quite as savvy. So our objective in starting the company was really to build a technology platform and a set of services to identify phishing attacks that are deployed through email and be able to stop them before they reach their intended target.
Okay, just for people who don't know about this maybe, what is phishing? And it's not spelt like with an F, is it?
No, so it's spelled with a PH, like the rock band.
Right.
But phishing is basically when a criminal, a bad guy, sends, more generally, phishing is basically masquerading as someone you're not, with the objective of trying to steal information or trying to steal money from your target. Now, we're specifically focused on email as a delivery platform, and so in our world, when we talk about phishing, we're talking about people that send emails and make it look like it's from somebody else.
Okay, I certainly get loads of those, even though I've got spam filters. I get them from, purporting to be from Bank of America and Wells Fargo, or you've won something.
Right.
So how big an issue actually is this?
It's a very, very large issue. Identity theft as a category is a $50 to $60 billion a year problem, and phishing is a significant contributor to that loss. And so, if you look at the amount of money that is lost both by people like you and me, as well as the brands, the companies that are sort of used as the bait for the phishing attack, the costs are very significant, and frankly, they're growing.
Okay, so how did you and your co-founders get involved to come up with this?
Sure.
There's an obvious problem there, but how did you come up with something to try and address this?
Well, I think there was an obvious recognition that the problem is big, the problem is growing, and therefore the natural conclusion there is that there's not a great solution to that problem out there already. There were some things happening in the marketplace, in the email marketplace, that signaled to us that now would be the right time to try and take advantage of some of the trends and apply them specifically to try and address the phishing problem. And in our world, when we look at what are the market dynamics, what are the underlying trends that made us think that, it's all about email authentication. And from a technology perspective, that's really what we've latched onto as the foundation of what we're trying to do.
Okay, so as one of the co-founders, how did the co-founding team come together to try and address this issue?
Sure. Well, the other founder, Robert Pickup, and I met initially about 4 years ago when we were both working for companies doing similar things in consumer email services. I was working with a company called Mailblocks, and we had deployed what was called challenge response. And the idea was it was a way to validate every person or every entity that was trying to send you as a customer an email was indeed who they said they were. And we accomplished that by sending a challenge email and requiring that person to respond. So Robert and I met working, running in the same circles, working with similar technologies. And fast forward 4 years, the market's changed. Challenge response really never got adopted, but some things out of that challenge response service idea were what really started to build the awareness and sort of the underlying standards around email authentication. So it's really more a matter of us reconnecting than, connecting for the first time.
Okay, so that's an important factor. You've worked together in the past at an organisation for a number of years, and you were in the same market.
Correct.
As the market you ended up going into.
Correct.
And I think that's an important factor, certainly for most investors looking at somebody addressing an established market, which this is.
Right.
They look for that expertise in the founding team and that experience of working together in the past. It comes up all the time on this show. So tell me a little bit more about how TrueDomain is different from other ways of going about protecting from phishing attacks.
Sure. So there's really two fundamental differentiators as we see them. One is the foundation in email authentication. They're the adopted solutions, the technologies and the products that are deployed out there in the marketplace today really don't use email authentication at all as it relates to email security. There's a reason for that, and that is because in our business, or at least in our architecture, what's important is that entities that send email, the brands that are typically targeted by the phishers, do something with their email when they send it, and that's really the start of the authentication cycle. And it's only been over the last really 12 to 18 months that we've started to see a critical mass of adoption on the sender side of email authentication. So products that were designed and developed and deployed over the last several years really didn't have that, at their disposal as they were trying to figure out how to address the different problems in the email security market. So we came to the market at a time when, the adoption had hit its inflection point. Nobody was really doing anything meaningful with that technology, so we saw that opportunity. So the technology is differentiated based on the foundation in email authentication. The second piece, the second thing that makes us different is the way that we're actually deploying the technology. Instead of selling appliances or instead of selling packaged software, we've created really a clearinghouse where we're performing email authentication in the cloud, and through our architecture connect the senders of email and the email receivers through that common framework to make sure that we're handling the authentication consistently, and we're also creating an audit trail for the senders so they actually have, for the first time, visibility into what's happening downstream once they send the email.
Okay, so prior to the program, I went to your website to see what the latest things were happening there, and you've got some partner announcements there. Can you talk a little bit about that, or about who the partners are and how you engage with them and why they chose you?
Sure, I can talk about a few things.
Okay.
I mentioned our two constituent groups, the senders and the email receivers. Right. So on the email receiver side, we have partnered with a handful of companies that provide email services to end users. The largest of them is Yahoo. So we deployed with them in February of this year and have been live since. So through the combination of our partnership with Yahoo and the other email receivers that we're working with, we're protecting about 30% of the consumer mail accounts today. And obviously, part of our objective is, we'd love to have 100% coverage, because then we can say to any sender, when you send an email, it's going to be treated the way it should, and you also know that bad guys can't spoof you and do bad things to you or to your customers. Right.
Okay. Can you talk a little about that? Because there are many startup founders out there who would love to have a partnership with one of the big names like a Yahoo or a Google or a Microsoft. Can you talk a little bit about how long it took to get that partnership going,
Sure.
how you approached it, some of the pitfalls, some of the lucky things that happened, whatever it was that made it happen? Can you talk about some of that?
Sure, absolutely. I first and foremost, a lot of persistence and hard work. But Yahoo is good for us on a number of levels. Obviously, from a business perspective, it really gives us a shot in the arm in terms of distribution across the mail universe.
Right.
But they've also, of the, the large ISPs out there, they've also been one of the more forward-thinking in terms of how to adopt and use email authentication for a specific commercial goal. That goal being, to stop fraudulent emails from being delivered to their customers. Mm-hmm. So, it was a really interesting set of circumstances where they already understood the value. Our interests are very aligned in that by deploying TrueDomain and being able to apply email authentication on behalf of their customers, they're protecting their customers, providing a higher quality of service, et cetera, et cetera. So, our incentives there are very well aligned.
Okay, so we'll come back to TrueDomain in a minute, but what I'd like to do is dig a little bit more into your background to understand more about how you got here and what were the circumstances that led to this.
Sure.
And again, see if there's some patterns that viewers of the show can recognize. So how did you get here? What's your background?
Sure. Well, it's everybody takes a different path.
Yeah.
I'm not what anyone would call a serial entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. I have worked in very large companies and I've worked in startups before. So I've had experience on both sides of the spectrum there, which for me personally was great because it creates a great combination of skills, learning sort of the critical and the analytical ways of approaching a business that you get from working for large companies. In my case, it was Microsoft. Mm-hmm. And working with in a startup environment where agility and speed and quick decision making are key to survival. Mm-hmm. So having that mix, having that balance, I think for me has been extremely valuable.
And what sort of roles you play? Were you on the technical side, on the commercial side, what sort of role were you playing?
So my background is primarily in business development and corporate development, so on the business side of the house.
Okay.
But I've spent time doing and managing marketing. I've carried a bag, had a sales quota before, which I recommend everybody should do at least once. Yep. Even though I swore I'd never do it again, but never say never. So my background is definitely more on the business side. Very early on, I was in finance. So again, a great quantitative foundation to build off of.
Okay. And your co-founder, what skill set and background does your co-founder have?
Sure. Robert really is the email and email authentication industry expert.
Okay.
He's been in the email space for the last 10 years or so. Has founded companies in the space before, and has been really more directly involved in this specific industry for a lot longer than I have. So Robert really is the brings the industry knowledge, brings the product vision, and things along those lines to the table. So we make a good combination.
Certainly sounds like it. You've got a number of the factors that most investors look for. As I said before, you've worked in the industry you're looking to address. As a team, you've worked together in the past at a company. You've got complementary skill sets,
right?
Business as well as technical, which is extremely important. And you've been able to take that and meld that into a really solid sounding company. I mean, the fact that you've been able to do partnerships with people of the class of Yahoo is great testament to the capabilities that you have. So having founded the organization, when was TrueDomain founded?
We founded the company in April of 2009, so
wow,
a little more than a year ago.
This is pretty fast moving.
It is. It is.
This is really pretty quick.
It has to be, though, in this funding environment.
So did you require any venture capital to get you where you are now, or has it all been bootstrapped, or how has that part of it flowed?
Well, we spent the first, I'd say, 7 or 8 months really working on sweat equity. We had no capital. Everything we did, we were self-funded to that point.
Okay.
We raised a little bit of angel investment late last year on a convertible note. And then as we announced at your conference, we closed a seed funding round in May of this year, which was our first equity raise. So in total now, as of that raise, we've brought in just a little over 1.2 million.
Okay. Are you able to talk about the investors?
Sure.
Yeah.
No, right now they're all angel investors.
Okay.
So which is appropriate, I think, for our category, being a B2B play at our stage in our life. Working with angels was really the right thing for us to do. We're really lucky that we were able to find a group of angels that were willing to to provide us the capital to really get to that next the next benchmark, the next milestone. But we've got 5 angel investors that have invested in the company. 4 of them were actually owners of our first beta partner, a company called Fastmail, based in Australia, which was recently acquired by Opera Software. So we started working with the company and the owners there really in a commercial sense.
Right.
They were the first email receiver to agree to deploy our technology across their mailbox footprint. We went through that process, and as we started to raise money, the owners thought, well, hey, we think we might be interested in investing in this. Now that we've seen you really from the inside out, we think there might be something there. So they've been the 4 gentlemen involved with Fastmail have been the largest investors so far, and then we have 1 additional angel investor based here in the Silicon Valley.
All right. So, in terms of actually getting to where you are now, was it just you and your co-founder until you got funded, or did you have to attract other people into the team to help you build it? It was
the 2 of us until we raised that initial convertible note money, and then at that point we started to build up the technical team. We brought in a head of engineering, a head of operations, and it was really limited to the 4 of us, and then a small number of contractors that worked with us on equity, cash and equity, friends and family type of arrangements until we closed the seed round. And since then, we've started to build the team further.
So you sound like the epitome of what one of our previous guests, Steve Blank, would call a lean startup.
Very much.
You kept costs very, very low. You built something that you could get out to at least one customer to try out. And having got that customer sufficiently impressed, they invested in you by the sense. So that's a great start.
That's right.
That's terrific. Where do you anticipate the business is going to go, or what are your plans for the business from where you are now?
Well, obviously, I mentioned earlier, we'd love to have 100% coverage of all the mailboxes on the planet. That's going to be a lot of work, but that's really our aspiration is to become that central, that widely distributed in the email world.
Right.
So I think, but looking a little nearer term, obviously, we're working with Yahoo today. There are other large ISPs, other large email providers out there that we would like to be working with, and we're talking to all of them. And obviously, our business is really contingent on, in addition to building up that mailbox footprint, bringing as many senders into the network as possible.
Okay.
Because it's really then, we really do have that element of a network effect in our business model, that the more we can bring in on both sides, the value to everyone increases. Okay,
I understand that. And why is it you think that TrueDomain, you and your co-founder, were able to come up with a solution that obviously has an attraction if it can attract a partner like Yahoo, compared to the larger, more established companies that have got, in some cases, billions of dollars at their disposal to invest in something like this?
Well, I think it's not uncommon in any tech sector that it's the bootstrapped or the venture-funded startups that really push the envelope from an innovation or from a new technology development perspective. And even in our industry, there's some pretty solid precedent in the venture industry and the startup community really bringing new and revolutionary solutions for security to the marketplace. If you look at the last big evolution that happened when email security started to move from endpoint software and enterprise appliances to hosted and SaaS solutions, it wasn't the incumbent vendors who developed and deployed those. It was venture-funded startups like Postini and MX Logic and Brightmail that brought the innovation to the marketplace, proved the value, started to build the business around that, and then there was a consolidation, and you're left then again with the same set of incumbent players after that all shook out.
Okay.
So not totally out of the realm of possibility for us to think the same sort of thing is happening here with respect to email authentication.
Okay. I'd like to dig in a little bit more to how you got to some of your customers. So you're a two-man team. You get you're based here. You get a first customer in Australia. Mm-hmm. How did that happen?
Well, I should mention Robert, my partner is Australian, so
okay.
He came to the U.S. with those relationships starting to develop already, okay. And so that was obviously very helpful for us that we weren't starting from scratch. So it wasn't purely coincidental that our first partner was Australian.
Okay, all right, okay, so that was already established. How did you get the next ones? I mean, what I often find with co-founders who are both from engineering, neither of them wants to go and knock on the door.
Right.
They want to employ, let's employ a vice president of sales or somebody in
Sure.
business development to go and do that for us.
Right.
I'm assuming you didn't do that because you previously carried a bag, but can you explain something about what you did?
That's right. I mean, that really was, again, getting back to the complementary, capabilities and skills that Robert and I, brought together. We did a lot of networking, just both through our own existing circles. Industry organizations have been extremely helpful to us as forums to, not only make contact, but, to start to get our message out and meet the right people, meet the decision makers. So it's really a combination of basic networking, blocking and tackling, and making sure that we're in the right places at the right time to talk to the people that we need to talk to.
So what sort of people were you, some tips for other co-founders here, what sort of people were you trying to get to within an organization that would
Sure.
be the influencers that could say yay or nay to taking your product on board and trying it?
Right.
Who did you have to get to?
Well, in our business, we're generally selling into the security and the IT organizations. So as we looked at, who are the people that we need to talk to, it's a combination of the decision makers, the CIOs, the CISOs, the VP level people, but also, frankly, the people that have really championed what we're doing are, the email operations managers and sysadmins and security managers, who live this problem day to day.
Right.
And know, tangibly what, the magnitude of the issue that we're trying to solve and trying to address here. So we've been lucky that we've been able to find someone that could carry the flag for us on the other side of the table and help us, advocate to the decision makers. And I think that's key in any business.
And once you've got these advocates there, how did you make it easy for them to get a yes from whoever controls the purse strings? Was it a SaaS model or a recurring license fee? Or
Sure.
How was it made easy to go from being, yes, I want to have this, to actually having it?
Well, one of the nice things about how, and I talked earlier about how we're differentiated, but because of the way we've gone to market for our customers, it's purely it's a SaaS subscription.
Okay.
So they don't buy any technology, they don't license any technology, they don't have to install or maintain or anything like that. So when it comes to the decision process from an operational perspective, there's really almost no impact with bringing us into the mix. We don't impact how they send email. We do all of our heavy lifting on the receiving end. So for our customers, the decision really boils down to, do I see the ROI in what I'm going to have to pay TrueDomain versus, what costs am I either going to be able to recover if there's direct financial loss involved, what costs am I going to be able to mitigate, customer service, technical support. When phishing attacks happen, people call customer support, and those calls aren't free. So there's very clear cost impacts that we bring to the table by helping customers avoid those.
Okay, so it sounds like you made it a very easy path for people to say yes. Once they understood they wanted to get it, it was very, very easy. There was no having to go and knock on the door of the CFO and saying, I'd like to get $1 million a year to do it was very straightforward. And very
That's
easy.
right. And I think as we look at how we've architected the solution, I mentioned earlier, everything we do is in the cloud, which is a popular buzzword these days, but it really does give us significant cost advantages when you compare us to, do I have to go buy an appliance, or do even the hosted data center centric solutions have a much higher cost base than we do. So we're able to be very aggressive from a pricing perspective.
Okay. Now, it's famous in the Valley that when Yahoo was looking for money, Yahoo's one of your partners, they had to pitch 75 times before anybody would give them money. How many times do you guys have to pitch for your most recent round of funding? Because you had the Australian connection that gave you the first round. How many times do you have to pitch for the most recent round?
75 sounds about right.
Oh, really?
No, we pitched, maybe 50 or 60 times. Which on the one hand gets very monotonous and frustrating, but on the other hand is extremely valuable as an entrepreneur, because you have to go through that process to get really good at giving your pitch.
Right.
And every now and then you run into an investor who's willing to give you constructive feedback as well, which is immensely valuable. Every entrepreneur, no matter whether an investor says yes or no, should always ask for feedback. And more often than not, you're not going to get it, but every now and then you will, and it can do nothing but help make sure that your pitch is focused in the right areas, the tone and the key points are all out there.
Okay. Well, we're running out of time, unfortunately. It's been great to have you here. Do you have any last words of encouragement or advice for first-time entrepreneurs who might be watching the show? Wow.
I think just be committed. Before you take that leap, make sure you're committed, and just be persistent. Every day is not a good one. There's some great days, some down days, but keep your eye on the objective, and that's really key. And
it's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you very much, Steve, for your time. And,
thank you for having me.
Not at all. And it's good night from the Silicon Valley Entrepreneur, and look forward to seeing you again next month.